Hi everybody, my name is Jaynes, the founder of Breaking Chains, an organization driven to spreading awareness about addiction and everything else. So today I'm going to read you my sister's story. She is the inspiration for Breaking Chains, and I've been trying to read this like 3 times today. It wouldn't work on my phone, so I have somebody else to do it for me, my good friend Dee, and I'm going to read this to you so you can understand what my sister's addiction looked like, what caused her to use, and basically what made her find recovery. Because although she did die from an overdose, she was in recovery before she passed away, and she did really try her hardest to maintain that. And she spoke to a lot of kids of all ages to help them so that they could find recovery too. Thank you for listening. I'm just going to see if a couple people come on here. If you have any questions or comments, you can write them while I'm speaking, but I'm not going to read them until the end. Please share if you are watching this, because this is very important, and I think a lot of people need to hear this story. Thank you. Hi, I'm Whitney Jaynes. I'm 19 years old and currently staying at Somerset House. I'm going to first start off with before my addiction spiraled out of control. Most of my childhood was filled with fear and never being good enough, as I thought. While growing up, was raised by my loving, supportive mother who always took care of me, my older sister, and a father who lived in the same house as me, but I only saw him late at night. My mom and him would fight every single night, and me and my sister would start to become afraid when the night came. I was always thinking about what was going to happen the next day, and I was always worrying about what would happen as well. We would barely have enough food to eat, but my mom would always put us first before she did. Mental abuse became the norm, and I made it a theme of my adult life. As I grew up, I was bullied about me cutting myself and always being labeled as the Jaynes family. Most of the town I lived in hated my mom, me, and my sister because of the lies that were spread about us. Nobody knew what happened behind closed doors. I had a lot of anger built up inside me, and I never knew how to control it or even identify my feelings because I was raised to not show them. I got into my first real relationship at the age of 15. The guy I had started dating was 18 at the time, and boy, did I fall head over heels for this guy. The beginning was great, isn't it always? Suddenly I saw his true colors, and he started to control every aspect of my life. He put me down and physically hurt me on many occasions. Growing up, I never knew who I truly was and had other people tell me. By him telling me what I was, it made me feel important to him and that he truly cared. I slowly stopped going home and lost all of my friends. I then decided to basically live with him, and the abuse came worse. He got me to think about smoking pot, and I finally did it. I watched him and his friends smoke, and I noticed it made them so much happier and lighter, and realizing how I was searching for something that made me content with my life. But really, I had a hole inside me that was eating me away. The first time I smoked pot, I instantly thought, wow, this is it. And I started to smoke. All I did was that. I started to become absent from school regularly, and all I cared about was my boyfriend and pot. After a year with him, I had so many resentments towards him. He had taken my virginity, my friends, my family, and myself. I thought right before we had broken up, I'd had a miscarriage with him, and mentally and physically I was broken from that. I never coped with the fact that I had lost that child, and we broke up, and I put myself into a deep, deep hole of depression. I would not eat, drink, shower, or sleep for weeks. All I thought about was him and my life. So now what? What do? I thought. I wanted to die, and I laid in my room with no light, isolating myself from the world, wanting nothing to do with it. Finally, after weeks, my friend had called and asked if I wanted to get drunk with her, and it will make me feel better. I finally went, and that first time getting drunk, I thought, yet again, this is it. Here's my answer. Quickly, I started to spiral out of control. At first, I was partying and drinking every weekend. Then every day. I had alcohol poisoning a few times, and I put myself in such horrible positions, always blacking out. My main goal was to forget and not be in touch with reality. I'm 16 at this time. My friends would steal her dad's oxys, and she got me to do one, and I felt intimidated with the feeling it gave me. It took all my anxiety away, and I felt like I could do anything and be content finally. Gradually, I went from popping them to snorting them, taking 20 to 40 of them at a time. I couldn't go to school without them, or I would be absent and not do a damn thing at all. I started finding different pills to take. I wanted to take them all. My group of friends would always get high and just chill. But then, starting to branch out, I went willingly along with them. I had started from doing shrooms and acid more than 4 times a week. I've had many scary trips, but I just kept doing it anyways. I started to snort cocaine daily, and then finally I found Molly, and I was determined that this was the drug I was going to do every day. I started selling it and always having it on me, and after I would be all out, I would be basically dead, sleeping and crying. By this point, I went to the Blue Heron Festival, and I had been working at Chautauqua Institution as a prep cook for that summer. I had brought $400 with me. As you already know, that was a shit show right there. I had eventually overdosed on meth, crack, molly, acid, ketamine, coke, oxys, and I had done shrooms and drank a lot of vodka. It was 4 a.m. I started to act insane. My brain felt like it was jumping up and down in my own head, and I would run into fires and call people inappropriate names. And by that time, I had started to seize in the back of the woods. I started to foam from the mouth, and I could feel it, and I was paralyzed. 4 men came up to me. I remember feeling like I just wanted to be left there to die. I didn't want to do this anymore. They started to take my clothes off, and I couldn't move. Another guy had shown up, and they ran away. He picked me up, and security called the ambulance, and I remember bits and pieces of everything. I had started saying, "It's a government conspiracy," and all this shit, and I felt like everything was pure nightmares. That night, all my sins and insecurities came out to play. I was so out of it. I had punched one of the nurses, and I remember thinking I was having a child. I remembered hearing a low voice saying, "You are not Whitney. You do not have a family, and you are not you." And everything went black. I had flatlined for a few minutes, so I don't know if that was around that time, but I remember waking up with a cot next to me crying, saying that he was so happy that I was alive and that he had a daughter exactly my age, and saying that I needed to get help. Then my mom came, and she was there the entire time. I was in the ICU. Everything that happened that night slowly came together, and my anxiety and depression was all at its highest. When I woke up my first thought was, "Oh my God, what are people going to say about me? I need to get high right now." Then, wow, I'm grateful to be alive. The nurse had given me papers on minors with addiction and counseling papers, and I ignored it all. I was still in denial. And I got out finally, and everyone had been talking to me and about me on Facebook. And I didn't want to show my face to anyone at all. I quit my job and didn't do anything. Flashbacks became worse, and every day I couldn't handle anything. By this point, a few months passed, and people started telling me my sister was selling drugs, and I remember saying, "No way," and getting really mad. One day, my sister and I were on our way to Buffalo, and I wanted drugs, and she had some, and she finally admitted it to me, and I asked for a line. I remember after that first line, I was hooked right there. Now, this was truly it. I can forget about everything and be numb. My goal since I was 15 years old was just to be numb, and after that, my sister and I and her boyfriend at the time were driving to Buffalo every day, and I was doing more and more. I had started dating a guy when I started to do heroin, and I tried to keep it a secret. I fell in love very fast. I was in love with him, but as I got more into the relationship, I began to love heroin more than anything else. I started to ditch him, steal from him, started withdrawing, and he would obviously find out, but accepted it. He then told me I needed help. I always agreed, but never did anything about it. He started to drink heavily and got into snorting other drugs, which I felt was my fault because my friend at the time was doing it, and I got him into it myself. I would get super high, and we would constantly fight. One day, he told me he was done with this, and I freaked out and slit my wrists, and his family called the hospital, and I was sent to a WCA hospital by an ambulance. I was taken out, but they didn't send me to CPAP, thank God. I got out, and he forgave me, and we started dating again. Then about a month later, he told me that he couldn't be with me anymore, and I needed to get help for me. He moved to Alaska, and my addiction went downhill from there. My sister and her boyfriend went to Miami for rehab and started doing fentanyl and driving to Erie daily. My sister then came back, and we all started back again. I shot up for the first time with a guy that I met from Erie, and eventually we thought we could do whatever we wanted. We started doing fraud checks with all these different banks. My sister eventually had a warrant for her arrest and went to jail, bailed out. I used with her again and then went back to jail. Her boyfriend got bailed out and asked me to take him to Rite Aid and to get dope. I agreed and we went to the bathroom. He had overdosed, and the thing is, when I found him with his face in the toilet turning blue with the needle in his arm, I thought to myself, maybe his was better. So I took it out and decided to do the rest of it in the bathroom before I even helped him. That's the insanity of all this. I was so numb to the things that were normal for me. He had gotten on a stretcher and my sister was calling the cell phone while in jail. I answered it, not really caring about her freaking out. After all this, I ended up getting arrested on some misdemeanor and felonies on October 9, 2016, and I sat in the holding center high as hell. I woke up sick as a dog. At this point, all I did was withdraw all night, sleep all day, and repeat. Same shit, different day, literally. I went on the blocks for a few days, sick as hell. I kept asking when I would be arraigned on my other charges, but nobody would tell me. I then went to the pod with my sister there, but I was put on double lock. I had to stay in my cell 24/7 till my TB shots came in. I remember sitting in the corner of my cell thinking, my drug dealer is going to change his number. Slowly, as a few days went by, I sat there thinking, okay, I'm 18 years old with some serious charges, and I'm very sick in jail. I may have a problem. I had to suffer and be in pain and be shown that there were consequences for my actions. I had to be forced to stop. This was my personal breaking point. I sat in the jail for about a month, signed up with drug court, and was sent to Renaissance campus for 5 months. I was extremely reserved, anxiety-ridden, fearful, withdrawn, and numb. It took me a while to even open up to my counselor. I slowly saw the compassion, love, and support in the meetings, and I stopped feeling so alone. I started to dig deep, real deep, and work the steps. I got sober supports at meetings, and I started to share and talk about things I thought only about in my head. I became a leader in the house, and after a long 5 months of finally finding myself, I woke up and was happy to be alive. I had a grateful life, and I was now humble. I graduated from Renaissance campus, sharing my story to many schools to hope anyone, even one person, could take from what I had done and show them that you're not alone. People do care. It is possible to be sober and content with yourself. I finally had a higher power. Before, the only thing I believed in was drugs. I went to Wendy's house, which is supportive living, for 2 months, and I had started to watch my roommate snort her medication and take many pills at once. I told her it was okay to do this until I had that first thought I could do it just once. That's when things went downhill again. I started abusing my medication and acting out, and I stopped going to my meetings. I quit going to groups and started isolating. I fully relapsed and ended up doing heroin and crack with my roommate for a 2-week binge. My talk was dirty. I went back to jail and I was sent back to Renaissance campus again. The embarrassment, guilt, and shame was so real. I thought I didn't deserve recovery and everyone was going to hate me and judge me. But right when I walked back in, everyone had open arms and I finally felt that deep compassion, and I really truly started to dig deep. That relapse made me realize how serious my addiction is and how I let my ego get the best of me. I was there for 2 months and sent to Somerset House. I had been here for over a month and I had met many amazing people. The staff and my counselors are super supportive of me and have learned to help me with my independence and to keep myself busy. I can finally say I'm content where I'm at, and I'm grateful to be alive and everyone here to this day. Thank you. So, that's the diary of somebody who's dead. Okay? If you're struggling with addiction, even if you're not struggling with it and you're in recovery, you're not very far from losing your life. Just one thought in the wrong direction can kill you. So I want you to think, when you have those thoughts and you feel like you're going to do that, there's a reason why we have support groups. There's a reason why we go to meetings. There's a reason why we have those phone numbers in our phone that we're supposed to call when that happens. My sister ended up relapsing, multiple times before she died, and then she ended up relapsing on heroin, and we found her dead in a parking lot behind a credit union because she went off to go get drugs on her own. Okay, this is the same person that was speaking to hundreds of kids about addiction. So she was not exempt. You're not exempt. Nobody's exempt. It just happens. Now, if you take advantage of the fact that you've been offered treatment, then I would go to it. I would take that chance that you have to survive and live a long, healthy life, because she will never have children. She will never get married, and she will never have the same opportunities that I have personally been given myself. She doesn't get to see her niece grow up. She has to basically watch from wherever she is, if she is somewhere. But I do believe she is somewhere, and I do believe that's why I found this book while digging through tons of books the other night. I found it, and I started sifting through it, and I found that story. So I do believe it was meant to be shared. Thank you so much for listening. If this is triggering you or did trigger you, then don't share it. But for those who felt like this helped, please do. Thank you.